Hi everybody, Jonathan here with a Twinmotion video. Now today we're going to be looking at a new tutorial series to create an absolutely beautiful landscape with an eco holiday park. I recently won AR/VR Project of the Year at Computing Construction Awards this year down in London. So this inspired me to make a video for you guys just to show you how easy it is to create wonderful landscapes and integrate stunning architecture into that too. So today's video is all going to be about creating that environment and knocking out some fantastic stills. And then the next video we'll be looking at cinematic videos as well. So make sure if you're new around here, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching as always. Okay, so let's get started with this tutorial of Twinmotion. And basically we're going to start with a new blank file. The very first thing I'm going to do is drag in a flat landscape. And you can see I can immediately start to get my sculpting brush and select the different kind of shape for that brush, which I'm going to go for something a bit more kind of stainy. And you can see as I paint, essentially I'm getting these really nice sort of hills and sort of mountainous sort of terrain coming up from the ground very, very instantly. So this is a really satisfying process with the new brush tool on Twinmotion. You can adjust the diameter and the intensity as well. But in terms of actually just kind of making a really kind of quick sort of random sort of landscapes, this is a fantastic tool to use. You can actually go through the different modes and raise these up as well as you need to. I'm going to change that to the circle, and you'll notice that here I can sort of flatten some of those areas out where I want to kind of do a bit of work. And also, if we go to paint terrain, we can now select a brush and literally just start painting the ground with the sort of selection of the 4 different types of textures or materials, if you like. Now you can actually drag new materials down, although there is a limit of 4 here, so just be aware of that. But you'll see it's looking pretty good already. Now let's go to the sculpting brush and basically depress the ground. What I'm going to do is drag some water on that, so you can see the starting ground is being revealed now, and as I basically get my brush size down and do some sort of painting, I can paint some hills in, but I can also paint in some, if you like, areas which are depressed, which immediately reveals the water. Okay, so you can see I'm just having a lot of fun just painting in a few areas of sort of some lakes for my kind of project here. That's all just being done sort of quite rapidly, no particular accuracy, but that's fine. Sometimes this is a really nice, satisfying way to work. And, you know, for tutorials, absolutely brilliant way to learn how to create sort of the environments you need. So yeah, I really, really love this tool, the painting tool and the landscape sculpting tool. So here we can kind of start to raise the land, and it kind of comes and pokes through the water again. And you'll notice this is great just for creating like a little island within this this lake here. So I haven't really got quite a good sense of scale just yet, but I will do once I start putting some trees and some landscape in. But this is looking pretty good so far. So I'm just going to go and adjust my diameter of my brush. Do remember that you can actually type numbers in here, okay, and you can actually basically use the slider, but it's quite sensitive, the slider. So very, very rapid in terms of actually kind of selecting those materials and just sort of painting that terrain. Okay, good. So I think we're ready to go for some trees now. So what we need to do is get the vegetation brush and just drag down into the dock at the bottom the trees that we would like to use on our project. You can see I'm going for sort of pine and kind of evergreen type trees. And look at this, I just absolutely love this tool. The fact you can kind of change the diameter and just literally start to spray, almost like photoshopping but in 3D, almost like an instant terrain. And these trees are really great. You'll see that when we zoom into them in a minute, the quality of them is super high. And you can do things like adjust the density and the coloration, and also things like, you know, the leaves blow in the wind, that kind of thing. So really, really nice, satisfying tool. So let's go back to my brush, get my brush size a bit smaller now. I'm just going to select a slightly different brush and just resculpt the landscape. Now you notice that if you do actually modify the landscape, the trees and things stuck on the landscape will go with it now. That didn't used to happen on early versions of Twinmotion, but it does now. So looking fantastic already, very rapidly. We're only a few minutes into the tutorial and we've already got the basic environment here. Let's drag down some more trees. You'll notice If I want to place a few individually, all I need to do from the dock is just select them, and every time I click into the viewport, if you like, I'll get a random one being placed. So just made a little adjustment to the weather there, and also going to adjust that background to be a bit more of a neutral kind of countryside type scene rather than that cityscape that Twinmotion defaults to. Okay, so I'm going to actually create a new container up in the scene graph. You can see that I can basically, as I drag these trees in and just sort of place those individually, they're added automatically to my scene. Okay, so these individual trees are very controllable, but basically I can just drag them all into that trees folder and then turn them on and off as required. Okay, so next up we're going to go for painting some grass and some surfaces into the project. So we're going to select a few of those and just start to paint. Now, you won't see this unless you're kind of close enough in, and that's because there's something called grass fading. So if we go into the preferences, you'll notice depending on the quality you have, if you change that to far grass fading, you definitely see it when you're a bit further away. But do remember your graphics card will have to work a lot harder for these settings. Keep an eye on the frame rate. You can see I've got my statistics panel open on the right hand side. And as long as we're in the green, you know, with the thumbs up, I'm on 35, 40 frames a second. We're pretty happy. Okay, so that's cool. So back into that painted object for the vegetation, you'll notice that I can also drag in things like rocks and some kind of bushes and some, you know, fallen leaves and twigs and that sort of thing, just to make it look a bit more, I don't know, a bit more interesting and a bit more variety. So very, very cool. Okay, so now I'm actually going to go to my rocks library and select a bunch of rocks. So I'm going to hold my key down, and basically every time I click, you'll notice I get a slightly randomized placement, orientation and size of rock. If I just want to drag in individual ones, I can, but this is a great way just to kind of make like a rocky outcrop here on the designs. So I absolutely love the quality of the rocks in Twinmotion. Okay, good. Right, so now we are actually ready for the first time to import our project. Now this is a really interesting project that I recently just won an award for. It was basically AR VR Project of the Year at the Construction Computing Awards number 22, which is an annual event held in London each year. Now I collaborated with a great designer, Ashley Miles of Ash Design, who designed these kind of cabins for a project that we're working on. And basically I did a load of visualization for Twinmotion, including some AR and VR kind of positioning. So here you can see the cabins, very, very nice models. Now these were all modeled in Vectorworks, which I absolutely love. And if you see my channel, you know, you'll already know that. So Vectorworks is just such a great modeler, and it's very robust. You can create superb models, but all of that works extremely well with Twinmotion. So what I'm going to do is just create a folder just to save the project. Now we've made a bit of progress, and let's save up the project so far. Okay, so let's do a little bit of work on the buildings themselves. So I'm going to go through and get a few materials and just sort of enhance these Vectorworks based materials with some sort of nice chrome and things like that. Do remember, if you want to modify things like the colours of the existing textures, best way to do that is click T for the texture tool or the eyedropper, and then basically you can sample that texture and then get the colorization picker. So for example, we'll click onto this object here and basically change the color quite happily from the standard one. So you can see it's starting to look quite a bit better already. Some of these colors definitely need a bit of work. Occasionally I find that a missing surface seems to be there as well. Maybe that was a glass table or something in Vectorworks. And of course, things like reflectivity, you know, always enhance the look of a CGI. Whether that's sort of true to life or not, it's quite nice just to enhance the reflectivity a little bit on these computer generated images. So one of the beauties of Twinmotion is this sort of speed. You've got a really good library set of materials built in. Now you can obviously make your own as well and store these as user library objects, and that's something we'll run through if needed. But you can see just by dragging and dropping and then adjusting with things like reflection and colorization, you can get a very nice variety. Now you notice that I just added some light into the lights themselves, and that means that if I do put the model into sort of slightly darker, then I'm going to get those luminous surfaces in the light source. And that's just a really nice little tip. So when you do your model, just make sure that you model the actual light source with a separate color material so that you can apply that neon material. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just have a quick look at the path tracing for a moment. I'm quite a big fan of changing the default settings for the path tracing so that basically the low setting is going to render really, really quickly. You'll notice that I can almost work in real time. Now I'm working on a 2080 Ti from a few years ago. It was probably the best graphics card you could get at the time. Obviously these days we've got things like 3090s and 4090s, even if you can afford them, which will render even faster. But basically the key with the path tracing really is to get those settings quite low when you're working and then crank them up when you're doing your high-res renders later. Okay, so occasionally you'll notice that you get a bit of a flashing surface come through, and that's a phenomenon called Z-fighting, where two surfaces interact in exactly the same plane. I can solve that literally just by turning that off in this circumstance, but just basically go back to your model if you need to and just readjust that. Now here you can see I'm just dragging in some props from the electronics section as well, just to kind of really enhance and bring the project to life. I absolutely love the way you can kind of basically just download these, drag them on, and they snap to that surface, and then you can position them just so easily. It's a very sort of easy way to work in Twinmotion. And that's one of my sort of favourite things about Twinmotion, is just this ease of access of the ready-made library and the ability to kind of very easily prop out a scene with sort of nice bits of furniture and things like plants and stuff as well. So you can see we've already got a bit of artwork on the walls, so we're just kind of focusing a bit more on the extra sort of decoration that, you know, you're not necessarily going to model in your architectural modelling software. Things like, you know, wine glasses and plates and stuff like that. I mean, you could do, but why not? Let's just keep it simple. So if you do have problems selecting things, then the best way to deal with that is just basically go up to the scene graph, and you can always click on the scene graph object and just manipulate it like I did with that plant there. Good, okay, so it's just starting to look quite nice. We'll download just a couple more items. You'll notice that if I actually click onto the download button, these additional items aren't actually in the Twinmotion library yet. They get downloaded from the cloud, and then basically we can kind of add those. But the good thing is they'll be there forever from now on. Now a really good little tip is click the heart button to favourite them. Okay, so what we're going to do now then, we're going to run through setting up our first few images. You'll notice it's so easy to do. We're just going to basically adjust the image. We're going to turn that landscape back on now outside, as you can see, through those windows and doors. I'm just going to set up a couple of different views, and when I'm ready, I just click on the Create Image button to create those images. Now I can easily adjust these later, so we're just doing a quick starting point. One of the beauties is anytime you're going to spot things that you want to change, so you can just come back, keep working on the materials, and basically just update the images. Okay, so a really healthy thing to do is also to create some folders for your content. You see that I just did that with some of the landscape material. Now I'm basically selecting the entire model that I brought in from Vectorworks, and it's really easy to actually just manipulate that and duplicate it with the Shift key. And here I'm just kind of creating a slightly different sort of placement for this. That looks really cool with that hot tub. A couple of image props that have come in from Vectorworks, so I'm just going to select those. Occasionally they can be quite hard to select. So again, good little tip, go up to the search and just type in the name, props or whatever you're looking for, and then delete them. Oh, I like that, it's looking really, really cool. So we'll basically just rearrange the order of our model ever so slightly. Okay, so a bit of tiny tweaking, let's push it down to the ground a bit more. What I might want to do actually is just take those rocks and just sort of move those either down or kind of like just under the deck and just rotate them around and then bring them out again. Now I quite like the way some of them are crashing through the deck. I quite like that, I think that's a cool feature. Okay, good. So I'm just going to drag in some nice water material for that little hot tub area there. And you can see the building looks really nice and sits well in its landscape. So let's duplicate some more of these cabins just around to the other part of the site. You can see how well Twinmotion handles this. And you can see that my frame rate, you know, we're still at 40 frames a second, which is really good for this kind of like fidelity of image already. And that's the beauty. It's just being able to work in real time with this level of quality of graphics. I think at the moment I'm working in high, possibly ultra. There's no real need to work in ultra settings. You know, working in high is absolutely fine, and then remember that all your final quality images will always generate in the ultra, well, beyond ultra actually. Okay, so what we're going to do here is just delete a few extra trees and things to make space for this little cabin here. You can just see how flexible it is to adjust that landscape. So at any time, if you do want to, just click F to fit the object that's selected, just so I can kind of get down there and manipulate the view a bit more. Okay, well, it's looking really, really good already. So I'm just going to make a few adjustments to this landscape here by deleting a few trees and save the model. So do make sure you save regularly as you go. You can actually set the autosave as well, but I tend to just sort of save every time I feel like I've made a bit of kind of good progress really. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into my site and reselect my painted object. Now, one of the fantastic capabilities is that I can now carry on painting with the painted object basically, and what I'm going to do is just turn off the cabins, or put those into a group if you like, just so I can turn those off. Also, let's just rename that group as well, so that's very, very clear what that is. Going to turn off the trees, I think, as well, just for a moment, and just rearrange my sort of order of my kind of folders a bit. So I think let's carry on with my painted object here. You can just see it's painting the grass, it's painting leaves, it's painting dead sticks, and a few different types of grass as well, just to really kind of quickly create beautiful kind of landscape. Okay, so turning off the trees does make it a lot easier to kind of see the areas that we're painting. Now do remember, depending on the grass fading setting that you actually have on, you might not always see the area that you are actually painting until you're a bit closer to it with the camera. That's just to sort of help the graphics card, if you like, not have to display billions of bits of grass in the distance. So I think I've put my grass setting on probably far at the moment, so I'm getting a pretty good view. So yeah, if you've got the capability on your graphics card, that's a nice way to work. But you can see it's a very enjoyable process, and the good thing is if you kind of paint over the wrong bit, you just get your little kind of erase, and basically you get your brush size down a bit, as I'm doing now. Just get that down, let's maybe, yeah, and just sort of erase and sort of tidy up those edges a bit more. So it definitely takes a little while to kind of work up these areas in detail, both with the eraser and the brush. And obviously you can drag on specific objects like I did with the rocks as well. So it's looking good already. Let's basically go into full screen mode. So every once in a while I do like to take a while just to kind of explore the project and, you know, just kind of focus on those bits that need a bit more work. You can see I'm just sort of enhancing this little island with some grass and things as well. Now, obviously I'm doing this quite rapidly. If I was doing a real project, I would take a bit more time to kind of actually get these edges looking even nicer. But you're getting a really nice effect, even from me doing this quite rapidly, hopefully. So we'll just kind of keep working on that a little bit more. And I think what we'll do now is basically we'll just have a little kind of move around the scene at kind of eye level. I mean, what do you think? It's looking amazing really for, you know, 15 minutes work or so from scratch. Okay, so we'll go ahead and basically update a few of our images. And what I really want to do now is focus on the outside images now that I've done a bit more work on the outside. So here's a really nice little view of basically the kind of outside from the deck. Look at those amazing lights with that neon shader. Let's go through here. You will occasionally sort of spot areas where, you know, you did the wrong thing and painted grass over that cabin, so that's fine. You just get in there and erase it and basically sort it all out. So, you know, you can see I can basically just kind of navigate through now. Let's just set up that new view, and I'll shift the views around just by dragging the order of them as well. So I love this ease of use and the ability just to click refresh and tweak and constantly kind of tweak your view. But, you know, working with a real-time rendering software where the quality of the preview is almost as good as the final image that you're going to get, it's just so refreshing. You know, in the old days when you had to kind of work in wireframe, click render, you know, wait 5-10 minutes, see something wasn't right, change it, and then re-render again. For me, those days have gone. You know, now with Twinmotion, or, you know, maybe even Enscape, my other favorite real-time renderer, we're just working in this sort of real-time view. One of the things I love about Twinmotion the most is the beautiful environments you can create. And, you know, anything with water always looks absolutely stunning, as you can see. And basically just sort of framing up a few shots, just trying to kind of get a feel for whether that's a nice view or not. I don't think that's going to work, so let's just going to move on to a new spot in the model. So that's the other thing really, you know, the ability to try things out and just sort of actually see what is going to make a nice image. And then as soon as you need to, because this image, you know, shows a bit of a kind of barren area here, I can just get my brush and just paint some more trees in, just in that background. So easy to do. So now I can go click back onto the view and revisit, and then if it needs a bit more work, just carry on. So I love this sort of iterative process that you get with Twinmotion, the ability to refine your view. I always think the 80-20 principle is good here. Try and get to 80% of the quality that you're trying to achieve quite rapidly. And then, you know, the last 20% is often the bit that takes even more time. Now you can see what I'm doing here is just setting up a plan view. So if you go into the eye icon, you'll notice that you can actually kind of set up things like orthogonal and plan views. But what you'll notice is the preview looks weird. It just looks very dramatic until you actually click onto the path tracing. So once you click the path tracing, you get a proper rendered view, and we can adjust that and just kind of update to get that really nice sort of top-down plan. So those look amazing, those views. Well everybody, I do hope you've enjoyed this tutorial as much as I've enjoyed making it for you. Remember, this is just part one of a series, so please subscribe for those other videos, and we'll be looking at cinematic video on the next one. Now, if you don't know, I've written a book on Twinmotion called Revolutionise Your Rendering with Twinmotion. It's a gorgeous 322-page ebook, and it features some of the best artists in the world who can inspire you with your goals for Twinmotion. So do take a look at the links in the channel and snap up a copy. It's only £35 for Christmas for you. Thanks for watching everybody, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.